All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight. It is 6:30, so I'm going to get started on time. This presentation is going to be recorded, posted on our counseling website at some point early next week, I'd say. The PowerPoint will be posted tomorrow. So if there's anything that you want to look back on that you hear tonight, it'll be available online for you and also available for those that weren't able to attend this evening. My name is Matt Ferreri. I'm the Director of School Counseling Services here at Westmore Central. Also with us this evening are the 11th grade counselors, Mrs. Losick, Ms. Donnelly, and Mrs. Schaefer, and they're going to be helping out with this evening as well. So the purpose of this evening is really to give you a broad overview of not just the junior year, but of the college search process, to a small degree the college application process. We'll give you some information about financial aid as well. Again, this is going to be in broader terms. You're going to get into very specific and personalized detail with the junior conferences that you're going to have with your school counselors. Okay, so again, a couple of goals for us tonight is one, we just want to kind of look at the timeline between now and when you submit your applications to colleges next fall. We also want to get an idea of standardized testing, start to hone in on that in terms of which test might be right for us in the college admissions process, and then again look at the college search process as a whole. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Losick, who's going to talk to you briefly about the timeline between now and next year.
Okay, hello. So this week we started our individual junior conferences. We will be doing those this month, January, and probably some into February. Okay, so you know, if you haven't scheduled a meeting, you schedule online on the BookMe. At that meeting, we will help your student figure out if an SAT or an ACT is the right test. You know, we'll show you how to sign up for that test, when to sign up for that test. And, you know, we will review your PSAT scores, which help give us an indication of that. And if you need to do some prep work, we encourage you to do that and sign up for the test. The other thing that you should be doing now is getting serious about researching the colleges. Naviance is a great tool. We show you that at the conference, and you should really start using that and getting serious about coming up with a list of schools that you think you want to go visit. You know, they do have virtual tours, but there's really nothing like going onto the campus, walking around, and seeing for yourself. And I know with COVID it was difficult, but now a lot of the colleges are back doing in-person tours. You just want to like call and schedule one in advance, because I know they're limiting them. But that we definitely recommend going to the campus, walking around, taking one of those student-run tours. If there's a long weekend, that's a great time. Spring break is also another really good time to go visit the colleges. Then in the spring, we will be touching base with the students again, and at that point we will be talking about letters of recommendation. We recommend that students get ask two teachers for letters of recommendation. We as guidance counselors will also be writing a letter of recommendation, and in the spring we'll also start talking about that college essay, which is probably the hardest part of the application. Also, they said IB, and some students will be taking IB and AP tests in the spring. Then really over the summer, you can continue to visit the colleges, and by the end of the summer, you really should have your list finalized, because it comes up quickly. And in August, we usually offer a workshop with an English teacher to help you with the essay and to go over some Common App questions. And so then in the fall, we will be meeting with the students again. And in the fall is when the students will actually start filling out the application. And all the applications are online. And then in October 1st is a big deadline when the FAFSA, the financial aid, opens up. And November 1st is a big deadline for early action and early decision, which we'll get into. But basically, you know, you really want, we encourage the students to do it early to, like, hopefully have most of their applications out, like October, November. Really, at this time next year, you should have all of your applications out, and you might start hearing back from the schools.
So, folks, today's December 15th. That's 10.5 months until November 1st. So it starts moving pretty fast, pretty quickly here now in terms of the college search process. So before we get into that, I just want to touch briefly on standardized testing. As Mrs. Losick said, every junior had the opportunity to take the PSAT. For those that did sit for that assessment, you should have received an email to your school email address last week telling you how to access your scores. Counselors also have access to those scores if for some reason that email did not come to you. Counselors will sit, kind of look at those PSAT results, go over what they mean, and kind of target some areas for improvement and things to focus on. The PSAT, again, is that precursor, that practice SAT. So it's going to be a predictor of potential performance on the SAT. We did not have the opportunity last fall for sophomores due to COVID to take the practice ACT, which we typically do for our sophomores. Because what we like to do is we like to look at this, there we go, fancy concordance chart, right? What it shows us is that if you look at an ACT, which is scored on a scale of 36, a 30 is equal to about a 1400 on the SAT, which is on a scale of 1600. So you may be asking, well, I got the PSAT result, where do I come up with this ACT result? If you go to, you can just Google this, but you can also go to ACT's website. If you just put in free practice ACT, it's going to take you directly to ACT's website. You have the ability to go on there, take a full-length practice ACT. My suggestion to you, and I know all the students are going to love this suggestion, sit down and do it on a Saturday morning, right? Because that test is going to be administered on a Saturday morning. I know, right? I'm nuts. The test is about 3.5 to 4 hours long. You should probably sit and get used to what it's like to do that. Don't do it in front of a TV, don't do it with a sandwich next to you. You're not going to have those things when it comes time for the ACT, but you can kind of get a full experience of what it's like. You'll get the results, and then you can look back with your PSAT and start to determine, all right, which of these two tests is right for me. For the majority of students, to be perfectly honest, it's typically either or. There really isn't much difference in terms of performance, but there are some students who just happen to relate or perform better on an ACT because of the style of questions. There's a science section on the ACT, which there isn't on the SAT. The SAT is kind of a little bit more traditional, a little bit more what you're used to in terms of standardized testing, so for some students, they may just perform better on that because out of habit. Okay, so again, you have the PSAT results. Consider taking a practice ACT so you can begin to gauge which test might be right for you. Okay, there's a website out there, and when you look at this online, that's linked to Fair Test. It lists all the schools in the country that are test optional. They were doing this long before COVID came around, and then COVID came around and nearly every school in the country became test optional. So for last year's senior class, I don't have the exact number, but it's 90% plus, right? We're test optional in terms of for schools. This year, it's 80% plus. Still waiting to see what's going to happen with this junior class, all right, and what the colleges are going to decide next fall in terms of, are they going to maintain those test optional policies, or are they going to go back to those traditional policies that they had from a standardized testing standpoint? Odds are you're going to want to take a test to have it under your belt, And then when you begin to apply, determine whether those schools are requiring them, if it's optional or not. And the rule of thumb is if you have a score that is at or above what they historically have accepted, go ahead and send those in if it's a test optional school. If your score is below, and maybe significantly below, and it's test optional, take advantage of that test optional policy. It's there so that they can evaluate students on other aspects of their application. Essay writing, activities, courses that you've taken, performance in specific courses if you're looking at a major of some type. So there are other ways to holistically look at your application without using the SAT or ACT score. So again, kind of bookmark this site on whatever browser you like to use, and we're going to monitor it between now for over the next 10.5 months, right, to see which schools are going to require SAT or ACT results. Okay, let's talk about college here. Number one question we get as counselors, and it'll probably be the number one question from now until we all retire, but what are colleges looking for in an applicant? What do colleges want from me? And these have not changed over the years, okay? The number one thing colleges are looking for from applicants is their grades in all of their courses. Some of the colleges kind of maybe look specifically for college prep courses. They don't necessarily care about the culinary arts class. I'm not knocking the culinary arts class, but they may be just looking at the math, science, English, history, world language, right? Strength of curriculum. Are you taking the most rigorous course load that you can handle, right? For some, it's advanced level classes, and that's great. For others, it's AP or IB classes, and that's fine. But what is the most rigorous course load you can handle? Are you enrolled in that? And are you performing well in that? This was done before the pandemic hit, right? So this SAT, ACT, take it with a grain of salt at this point. But after that, the essay, right? The next highest, and then recommendations come in after that. So, biggest thing, takeaway from this, perform well in your classes, folks. Okay? For the students in here, if you're doing well, keep it up. If you're struggling, get extra help, meet with the teacher, work hard, get those grades up. Okay? It's the number one thing you can do. Okay, I'm not going to show you all three videos, but these are three different schools that talk about what they look for in the college application process. Just going to play one video for you right now so you can kind of get an idea. This is why I'm very thankful that I see Baylor in the audience. Baylor, you're the man. This was working before you got here, folks. All right, Baylor, I'm going to do something real technical. I'm just going to unplug and plug it back in with it.
Prior to the conversations we have here as a committee. All right.
Thanks, Baylor. Somebody said to me, Matt, do you have Baylor coming tonight? I said, no, I can handle this on my own. Obviously, I can't.
We're on page 61. She's got 5s in 4 APs. We divide our applicant pool pool of circa 8,000 candidates into 30-plus geographic regions and pair 2 readers to each region.
With Caitlin, her being an inside-the-box kind of gal.
Inside the box.
Inside the box. How many would like to admit? Waitlist. Prior to the conversations we have here as a committee, the group has been significantly reduced to a really, really accomplished group.
He's a top tester.
He's got all A's.
4 varsity sports.
The first chair trumpet in the orchestra.
Is he ready for this? 6.4 GPA on a 4 scale.
Did he get all those 5s without AP courses?
Yeah.
Oof. But you can't take them all, and so about 1,000 candidates are brought to be heard by the whole committee.
And the process of making those decisions is agonizing.
I'm questioning the edge here, however, in all her excellence. How many would like to admit? Okay, there's the wait list.
We're fully aware of the fact that the process is, I don't want to say flawed, but it's making minute distinctions among extraordinarily talented kids. There are times, honestly, where I'm not sure why I put my hand up or failed to put my hand up. I'm kind of going with my gut here.
The night before her AP chemistry exam, she learned her father had an affair with a 23-year-old prostitute.
How many would like to admit?
One parent is a business exec VP with a master's, both went to Harvard. He's got 3 sibs at Harvard in classes of 09, 11, and 15.
His family financial situation took a huge hit, and they lost their family store and all other assets.
When a student is particularly poor and are achieving an exceptionally high level, that would be a plus factor for that student.
Dad's alcoholism consuming family. This is a quote from one of his essays. The alcohol-consuming poor Muslim family down the street with whom no sane member of society would want to interact.
How many would like to admit?
I am cognizant of some lives being changed, literally. On the other hand, yeah, I do feel badly. The months of February and March are simply no fun.
Okay, a couple of things. One, I do not want to see an influx of college essays about affairs or anything like that. 2, they kind of talk about, you saw at the very beginning, an inside-the-box thinker, right? You kind of want to figure out a way to separate yourself a little bit with the college essay. And but really, hopefully what you saw here is, they said when they get to that table read, now it's down to about 1,000 applicants, right? So they're getting X amount of applications, and they've got their group that, hey, they've got what they're looking for, they're getting accepted right away. And they've got their group that are short, they're getting denied right away. But they've got these borderline candidates that they're going to sit and they're really going to look at the whole student, right? Take everything into account. Family life, economic background to a degree there they mentioned. First generation college students, do you speak multiple languages? They're going to look at as many things as possible. They're looking for reasons to accept you. They're not looking for reasons to deny admission. That's the number one thing admin reps tell us when we have conversations with them is, hey, we're looking for a reason to accept you. Okay, so give them as much as you can, whether it be through an essay, whether it be through recommendations. If you have an opportunity to do an interview, take advantage of that opportunity as well. That was Amherst College. We have, again, there's some information on Brandeis and Grinnell College. Look at those at your leisure, but again, just kind of getting an idea of what they're looking for overall from a student. Wanted to get into the really exciting part of the presentation, and that's statistics, to look at how we're doing from an admission standpoint at various colleges and universities. You can see typically we have over 90% of college, students attending a college or university after graduation. It was 78% back for the class of 2019, going to a 4-year school, 76% now going to a 4-year school. You could probably draw a direct link to COVID in terms of that dip there. There's a financial piece to it as well. But again, over 90+% attending a college or university. I think Ms. Donnelly later on is going to speak about the number of schools we should apply to. We, about 5-6 years ago, really started an initiative in the department to work with students to to really target number of schools that they're looking at, and to target schools that they really want to go to. What we were seeing is we were getting kids applying to 12, 15 schools, just throwing a bunch of stuff up against the wall and see what would stick, right? We really want thoughtful process here. And so what we saw is, as this number came down, number of applications per student, this percentage went up. Back when this was over 7 a few years back, that percentage of students accepted to a college or university was in the 60s. Now it's at 78%, meaning 78% of the applications we send out come back as yes, welcome to the class of. Okay? I'd like to think that's because we're really thoughtful and we're really able to dedicate time to the colleges that we want to apply to. And again, Ms. Donna will speak to that a little bit more. You know, there's a lot of different rankings out there, and we can debate for hours on end about the value of rankings, but I just really kind of wanted to show you maybe levels of colleges in terms of their reputation and name. So Barron's most competitive colleges and universities, right? These are your Ivies, your MITs, the schools I couldn't get into. You can see here, right, their GPA, this is again weighted, is a 5.16. On our weighted scale, that's an A/A minus, right? That's the average GPA accepted from West Morris. The average SAT, 14-13 from West Morris. Average ACT of 31. So you can see kind of what it takes to get to be accepted at some of those schools, and I would use this caveat, right? That 31 probably isn't getting you in at the Ivy League, right? The 35, the 36 is. The next level of schools, highly competitive colleges and universities. You can still see, right? Very strong GPA, very strong ACTs and SAT results. And then that third tier of competitive schools, again, this is all West Morris data, right? We're producing good quality applicants to these colleges and universities. You know, we always get the question, where should I start to look? And we'll get into kind of how to conduct a search, or your counselors will get into that in your individual junior conference meetings. But I'd like to kind of show you historically where our students have applied. Maybe this is a jumping off point for you. Just a place to maybe start your search, certainly not a place to end your search. These are the most common schools applied to, and you can see Rutgers and TCNJ, very good New Jersey schools, so no surprise that they're on there. Penn State historically has been a very big, very popular school for us as well. So those are the top 10. And then off of that, these are the top 10 schools that our students are going to over the past 3 years. University of Pittsburgh kind of really came onto the scene for West Morris 4 years ago. If anybody's ever been out there, it's a real fun town. It's continually voted one of the most desirable places to live in the United States. 4 years ago, it was the #2 city behind Honolulu, Hawaii. So take that for what it's worth. But kind of an interesting school there. And also Scranton has kind of hopped on board in the past couple of years as well. Sorry, got trigger happy here with the clicker. Okay, so Naviance is the tool we use to organize our offices in terms of how we're going to submit transcripts, letters of recommendation. It's also a tool that you're going to use to organize your college search. Give you an opportunity to run various searches, save the searches, start multiple lists about schools that you want to go to, compare schools. What we really like about, and listen, you could do this on Princeton Review, you could do this on Kaplan, you could do this on College Board. There's a slew of sites out there that you can do college searches on. But what we like about Naviance is that it's specific to West Morris Central High School students. So all the data that you're going to see there is West Morris Central. So there's a lot of features. I'm just going to briefly touch upon two. You know, the question we always get is, can I get into this school? You know, I like to try to back that up with data that we have here in the counseling offices. This scattergram feature, again, shows what the average accepted student from West Morris has been over the past 5 years. All these greens are students that were accepted, all these reds were students that were denied. So you can see here at this particular school, the average accepted SAT is just around 1,300. This was on an unweighted scale, it's just above a 3.5. I think now we have it set to weighted. And that blue is this particular student that we're looking at here. What we like to say is that, you know, if you're amongst the greens, that's a school that you're most likely you're going to get accepted at if you were to submit an application. If you're amongst the reds, you're probably going to be very difficult to get into that school. So when we look at the number of schools that we're applying to, right, we don't want to have a bunch of schools where we're amongst the reds there. The other feature that I really like from Naviance is overlaps. This is Marist College, and from this time period, students that applied to Marist, 50 of them also applied to the College of New Jersey. 48 of them also applied to the University of Scranton. These schools typically have something in common: location, size, same rigor in the admissions process in terms of percentage of students that they accept. So maybe a good way where if you like Marist College, let me look at overlaps, and these are schools that are similar. Maybe I can expand my search and can look at some of those schools as well. So once you do develop the college, once you do develop your college search and you got a list of schools, time to go visit them, and Mrs. Schaefer is going to talk to you about that.
I've wanted this microphone all night, so I'm excited it's my turn. So we talked a lot so far about what students need, what colleges are looking for. This is a fun part because this is where students really get to go and see what are you looking for in a college. And I think the nice thing is a lot of these schools are offering virtual tours. That being said, everything looks really nice on the video. So if you can go and actually see the campus, see the students walk around, and get that formal tour, we definitely recommend it. We understand that that's not always possible. You want to make sure you're planning ahead, because like we mentioned, a lot of these tours do have limited seating, so you just want to think ahead, when is it feasible for your family and your schedule to get out there and start visiting, and really book up those appointments. We do offer 3 college visit excused absences here, so you just need to ask the admissions office just for no confirmation that you were there. If you bring it down to the attendance, that will be an excused absence. We sent in the agenda, and we'll give this to you guys in your individual meetings, kind of an overview of things that you can look for when you're going on campus. That's really important to kind of bring those, maybe even in the car on the ride down or up, wherever you're headed, just to kind of see things you want to look out for, okay? But really being on the campus, I always hear from students that once they're there, they know if they like something or they don't. So it's really, really helpful, and I have fun with it. This is really your opportunity to think about where can you see yourself for the next 4 years after you graduate here. So make sure that you're really being thoughtful and engaged when you're on the tours. All right. I think we have a video to hear some student perspectives as well.
Well, how do you feel?
I think that the college tour process can be very intimidating and overwhelming in a lot of ways, but what I find the most valuable about that process is that you're able to really get in touch with yourself about what you might want from your college experience.
There's so much to do and so much to see. Somebody taking you around this new place, and it's very awesome. But it's very important to stay engaged and listen to what is being said. Sometimes the good thing about the college is not in the beauty or what you see, but what has been kept and you cannot see from the outside.
This is your hour.
So talk with the tour guide. Tell them what you're passionate about, what you're interested in studying, or doing for an extracurricular. Because then they'll be able to make the tour more fitted towards you specifically.
As an international student, I find it useful to ask questions about where I'm going to be staying and the type of community I'm going to be joining.
What is it like to live in a Smith house? What are the rooms like? How do I get a roommate? Will I be given a roommate? How do I choose my house? I want people to feel free to connect with me on a personal level about the experiences that I've had at Smith, because I'm so passionate about each and every one of them.
Be specific with the questions that you ask and let them tell you whatever you want to know. If it's about a class, ask about what you're going to do in the class. Can you get attention from your professor? What's the ratio, student to professor ratio? Can you get help when you need it?
Sometimes the tour guide might not know everything about the department that you're interested in, and some families may just walk away after the tour, but what I would suggest is definitely feel free to reach out to anyone in the admission office, and if they don't know the answer, they would be really happy to help you and reach out to the department chair or anyone else in the department of your interest.
Explore the area downtown and see what the vibe is like.
We have 4 other colleges around us, so we're a 5-college consortium, and there's so much to do and to learn, and it's your time to explore.
My advice is to make the tour your own.
I think just beyond what's your life here like, what's dorm life here like, what's social life here like, if you want to get specific and really connect with your tour guide, we're open to it. I'm open to it. I would love that.
One of those things that Mrs. Schaefer had mentioned before are those 2 documents that are linked to on the junior conference agenda that we sent out when we asked you guys to sign up for your junior conferences. And they're cheesy, but they're helpful. Sometimes you just don't know what questions to ask when you're going on these tours. So those documents will really help you make the most out of your visits when you get there. And I always tell my students, your gut feeling is pretty dead on, honestly. So when you're going and you're feeling like, I don't see myself here, this doesn't feel like a good fit for me, that's telling you something. And when you feel like you can see yourself somewhere, it's such a good and awesome experience. So take note of what you like and what you don't like about each campus you visit. And I don't know, if that's on your phone, you're taking pictures and notes in your notes app, great. Just do something to remind yourself the pros and the cons through your own eyes. This next big piece of the admissions process is letters of recommendation. So we encourage students to ask 2 teachers for letters of rec. And honestly, it's best if those teachers are from your junior year. If you're having trouble determining which 2 teachers might best recommend you, come and talk to us. We're here to kind of troubleshoot that with you. If you know that you definitely want to go into engineering, then you maybe want to ask a teacher that's in the math or in the sciences or in a technology department. If you have absolutely no idea what you want to do in college, then maybe you ask someone from the math and sciences and someone from the humanities, right? But we are here to help you in determining who you're asking for your letters of rec. It's important that you do this in person. Your teachers are humans. They have a lot of things on their plate already. So when they're writing letters of recommendation for you, it's something extra that they're doing. But of course, they're happy to do it. They're not going to say yes if they can't find anything good to write about you, right? So ask them in person, humanize the process.
No, sorry. I went back.
Sometimes your teachers will ask you to complete little brag sheets or forms about some of your favorite moments in the class, and just make sure you're doing that on the timeline that they specify. So like Mrs. Losick said earlier, we'll start talking to all of the juniors about letters of rec in the springtime, and you definitely want to make sure you're asking them. And they are confidential, so you're not going to get to read these letters necessarily, but please, please, please know that nobody's writing negative things about you. They just wouldn't write a letter, right? So choose your teachers carefully. If you have someone outside of the school that you think is a great recommender, a coach that you're really close with, or maybe a boss that you worked with for a really long time, you can also ask them for an additional letter, but definitely stick to those 2 teacher letters of recommendation. And we're writing one for you guys too. So you're all automatically going to get a counselor recommendation, and where your teacher letters will speak to academic achievements, ours kind of looks more at like the whole picture of the student. So what are your distinctive qualities? What are some more overall academic achievements? And what impacts have you made on West Morris? What impacts have you made on our community? That's what we'll speak to in our letter. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for more information about letters of rec in the spring. And thank you, teachers. Okay, how many schools to apply to? Mr. Ferrari kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but really the key to this whole thing is balance. You don't want to be blowing this list up with 7 schools that are all reaches for you, meaning you're in the red on that Naviance scattergram. You really want the bulk of your schools to be within the green. So your GPA, your test scores are meeting their historic acceptance averages. So 3 to 5 target schools, that's where you're meeting their averages, maybe 1 reach school, maybe 1 safety school. It becomes really expensive to send out all of these applications, right? So be super mindful about the schools that you're putting on your list. Have you done your homework? Have you done your due diligence? Have you visited? Have you reached out to admissions offices with different questions? That's all super important, and that can help make you the standout applicant.
Yeah, and just to add on that, so this is just like the averages, but something to consider with the safety schools, you really want to be thoughtful about that, because those are the schools, when you're above what they're looking for, those are the schools that might give you the merit opportunity. Sometimes they have students who will just throw one on the list, just like, oh, I'll get in there, but I don't want to go. So it is really important with that safety school that you are thoughtful, because that might be the place that you end up, because it makes sense. So just keep that in mind as you start your search.
And I would just add to that safety school comment. You know, often I've had conversations with kids, and I said, "Oh, what's your safety school?" And they'll throw a name at me, and I said, "Oh, so you'd be happy to go there?" And they said, "No, not really." Then why are you applying there? That's the last bullet, which would be consider your cohort. You know, there may be some schools, colleges, universities that maybe they're only going to accept 5 students from West Morris. Right? And if we have 20 students that are applying because they just feel like it might be a school they could get into, but they have no interest in going there, you could potentially be taking a spot from somebody else. So, you know, if you believe in karma and cosmic justice and, you know, doing right to your fellow man, you know, just really only apply to the schools that you actually want to attend. Financially, look, we could talk for days about this topic. I'm going to leave it at this. We are very, very fortunate here to have a great connection with a man named Mr. Ed Zamora, who comes yearly to do our financial aid talk. And at the end of that presentation, he puts his cell phone number up there. It's his actual personal cell phone, and he answers it anytime you call. That every year we post that presentation up on our school website, so it's already posted from this past fall, September I should say. Please take a look at it at any point in time. He really does a nice job of walking you through step by step the financial aid process. What I've put up here are some resources for you to be aware of, such as the FAFSA, which is the Federal Financial Aid Form. It all begins and ends there, so I shouldn't say it all begins there in terms of if you want to get a loan from a college or university, you're going to need to have that form completed and submitted to that college or university. Annually, that form opens on October 1st. So for this group, October 1st, 2022, that form will be available for you to go online, start your account, and start completing that information. You'll need tax returns, whatever other financial documents that you have at your disposal to answer that. That form is being adjusted for you folks. The claim is that it's going to be easier, it's going to be shorter, says the federal government. Well, I'll believe it when I see it, but hopefully, you know, that does hold true. So again, the FAFSA is very, very important. There's this other form, the CSS profile. This form is a bear. I mean, I can't describe to you the amount of time you will need, ibuprofen, whatever you like to use, okay, to help you complete this form, but it basically wants to know everything, okay? Everything. So don't think you're going to sit in one session and complete the CSS profile. But I bring it to your attention because there are a number of schools that, in addition to the FAFSA, will want you to complete the CSS profile. So that may be a question that you want to ask on your tours or something to look at on those college websites when you're going out there, is do you also want us to complete the CSS profile? That too opens October 1st. I just wish you luck, okay? And you know, I've got a daughter entering high school next year. I'll be wrestling with that form in a couple of years myself. New Jersey HESA, good website specific for New Jersey students. So scholarships and grants and programs available only to New Jersey students. So that may be another worthwhile site for you to look at. And over on the right, these are the large scholarship websites available to anybody in the country, right? So the pool of students that you're competing against to earn one of those scholarships is rather large. So something to consider as you're looking at that. Annually, we open up our local scholarship program, which is available to our seniors. Typically about 50 vendors from the area offer scholarships. And what's nice about that is you're only competing against members of the senior class and students who complete those applications. So your odds of earning a scholarship are potentially better there. And they range anywhere from $500 to $10,000. So, you know, you just got to put in the time and the work. And it is time and work for the seniors, current juniors, next year seniors, to do those applications. So be aware of those opportunities. I'm going to wrap up here with a couple of things. Just some further reading if you're looking to last minute Christmas gift or whatever. But something to, maybe if you have some time, to help you through this process. The book over here on the left, The Enlightened College Applicant, is really a great read for both parents and students. Walks you through the process, talks about the difference, and really goes into good detail about private colleges and public colleges and why private colleges are able to offer so much more money than public schools. You know, it talks about sticker price. The price that you see when you go on the website for a college or university is not necessarily, and very seldomly, the price that you're going to pay, whether it be through scholarships, grants, work-study programs, different loans that the schools have to offer. The truth is the private schools, you know, have the funds or more availability of funds to offer those than the public schools. So while the public sticker price might be smaller, oftentimes the private school, after you get through grants and scholarships and loans, may wind up being cheaper than a public school. So something to consider. The second book, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. Again, I think an important read for every student. Really kind of talks about, you know, this does not define you, okay? Where you go next year after you graduate high school does not mean that that's who you are for the rest of your life, right? It's an important piece, but it's a very small piece of your life. So there's more to it than the name of the school that you're going to. So I think really, really important message there. So like, I'm endorsing this book sight unseen. I got to be honest with you. I attended a webinar earlier this week. They mentioned this book. I looked at it. It looked good. So if anybody does purchase it and it stinks, I apologize. But if you purchase it and it's great, let me know and I'll keep it in there. I'm going to purchase it myself. But kind of an organizer for your college search. Talks about how to, it gives you different lists, different questions to ask on your college tours, different essay topics, how to write a college essay. So a lot of kind of good tips in there, written by a school counselor. I forget where he's from, but also by the director of admissions at Georgia Tech University. So maybe worthwhile. And then this came out last year, A Year Inside College Admissions, Who Gets In and Why, by Jeffrey Solingo. I couldn't put it down. Just a kind of a great story, if you will, of how these colleges look at applicants and why do they accept certain students, why do they not let other students in. So really kind of an important read. So if you get an opportunity, take a look at that. This is Malcolm Gladwell, author of one of my favorite books of all time, Outliers, Tipping Point, Blink. He has a podcast, and he put this out this past summer. It was called Lord of the Rankings, if you want to take a look or give it a listen wherever you find your podcast, Lord of the Rankings. And it spoke to the extreme fallacies in the rankings that we use, i.e. U.S. News and World Reports was specifically one of the ones that he addressed. Goes into great detail about why you really shouldn't pay attention to them, why schools that may be ranked in the top 100 really have no business being there, and schools that are ranked in the bottom really have no business being there either. So if you get an opportunity, again, Lord of the Rankings, give it a listen. But he did an interview with this group called the College Guidance Network, and I just want to play 2 minutes. It talks about rankings, why you should avoid them, and really what you should be thinking about when you're looking at schools. I think it's a perfect way to end what we've been talking about here tonight. So Baylor, I'm hoping it works, bud. You can bet I'm writing Baylor a fantastic letter of recommendation. Help. Any ideas?
Class and get engaged by ID? Or do you look at your phone and do Instagram?
So probably not so good.
Do you, the determining factor in whether you get a good education is not the school you attend. It's you. It's, do you sit in your dorm room and smoke pot? Or do you go out and join a bunch of student organizations and can participate in the opportunities the school has to offer? Do you take your studies seriously and do the reading and go to class and get engaged by ideas? Or do you look at your phone and do Instagram during a lecture, right? That's up to you, right? Nothing to do with the school. And we have this fiction that it's all about the school you attend. No, it's not. It's about the attitude you bring to the school. We view this as a consumption decision, right? It's, what can I purchase that's the best and most and the shiniest and the most attractive? And not focus on the real thing, which is the consumer. What do you do? That's why I hate rankings, because they put the emphasis on the wrong place. In my perfect world, a student would simply ask him or herself, what is it I want from my college education? Where would I feel happy? Where would I feel inspired? Because the truth is that the overwhelming majority of schools in America, you can get a really good education. If I'm a 17-year-old junior starting to think about colleges for the first time, the first question I have to ask myself is, what do I want my college experience to be like? What do I want to do when I go to college? Ask a fundamental question about what your values are. What do you care about? When you go to college, you are transitioning from being a child to an adult. When you're an adult, you have a responsibility to ask much more significant questions about what you stand for as a human being, right? What you care about, what motivates you. Start with those questions. Don't start with the rankings. The solution.
I think pretty powerful message there, right? And I hope one that will sink into those that are in attendance tonight and those that watch online later on. Again, this is light in the presentation, so he does go on for a few more minutes to talk about how to really delve into how to prioritize what you want in the school. So if you get an opportunity, go ahead and watch that as well. So that's all we have for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming out here, and we are definitely going to take questions. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. If you want to go, I won't take it personally. Go ahead.
In the past, the English teacher in junior year have started essays with the students. Will that be happening this year in their English classes?
Yeah, question was, in the past, English teachers junior year do the college essay. Yes, that will be, that's still something that they do. They do get it started in the spring. We do offer a college essay and college application workshop in the summer for those that kind of need to continue to work on it and want to fine-tune the process. Other questions? Yeah.
Is there a certain year where grades start to matter more? Is it like sophomore or junior year?
That's a great question. Question was, is there a year that matters more when it comes to grades? And what I'll say is this, they certainly all matter, but your junior year is your last full year that the colleges will be able to evaluate, right, before you enroll in their college or university. So for that reason, junior year is incredibly important, right? It's the closest you're going to get to college academia. They are going to see your first and second marking period grades of your senior year, but oftentimes by then the decision has already been made. So junior year is crucial. So get to work if you haven't done so already. Other questions? Going once? Yes?
When selecting colleges and for a student athlete in that coming into play with selecting colleges and the hopes of playing at that level?
So, once upon a time I was the head soccer coach here, and was fortunate, had a number of players go on to play in Division I, a number of players go on to play Division III, one went to a Division II school to play. Again, I think it's probably about a dozen students that did that. Only 4 of them finished playing soccer in college. I mean, they tapped out after year 1 or year 2. The advice I gave them, the advice I give any student is, if you were to walk on the practice field day 1 of your college career and you blow out your knee and you can never play again, is that still a school that you want to be at? That's the only question that you have to answer. If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't go to that school. If the answer is yes, then it's a good place. As far as how can you use athletics in the admissions process, the athletics office is an arm of the admissions office, right? It can be an opportunity for you to get into a school and maybe earn some potential scholarship money. But again, it's really important that the school that you're going to, right, regardless of if you can play or not, is a school that you want to attend. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? Yes?
Have you seen students the way GPA out of school?
I'm sorry?
How do you see your students GPA, the way GPA out of school?
Weighted GPA inside power school. So first, we still give out the transcript of the junior conference, right? Okay, so we give out the I should know that. We give out the transcript in the junior conference, and on the transcript is your unweighted GPA and your weighted GPA. We don't update the weighted GPA until the end of each school year. So what you're going to see on that transcript is the most up-to-date. I don't believe there's like a cumulative info part on the left-hand side, or grade history on the left-hand side. I don't believe it's there, though. I think the only place you're going to be able to see it is on this unofficial transcript we give to you. Other questions? No? No? Thanks, folks. Have a good night. Drive safely, all right? Have a good break.